it reminds me of like the question kind of frames in a way that reminds me when Matt and I have a record and we're like sitting down going like, which song should we put out first? And it's like this question that is really tough sometimes to know, like, and especially the order that you want to put things out in, because certain songs have different flavors than others. And I think for us, that's always been a pretty interesting challenge to figure out what is going to go out. But the song that I guess surprised me, you and the label both picked the song Sun Eater as like the song as the one to kind of do a video for and push out of our bonus tracks on our
the four bonus tracks.
The 4 bonus tracks. And that surprised me because I'm such a fan of all of those bonus tracks. For some reason, I just didn't think of Sun Eater as being like the one to push as hard, but it's like being listened to. I think it's on our top Spotify spins and it got a lot of love. And
we can't tell you how much love because there's a couple other things that happen to the song, hopefully knock on wood. Yeah. But we were like, oh, there could be some cool sync placements that we just found out about. So only knock on wood on that one. But yeah, it
was a surprise.
That was a surprise, that song. I would agree with you on that one. But I mean, I did pick it a bit. But
yeah.
Humble brag. So I've listened to your entire discography, I don't know, 5 times. So I'm super familiar with everything on all the albums. And this is a question for Matt. There's so many tasty and memorable riffs across the 3 albums. I'm curious, as a guitarist, if you have like an app on your phone to record, if you have like a hard drive full of riffs, and if there's all this stuff that's ready when you go to record a new album that you go, yeah, that riff was cool, that was cool, and you can build songs around them, or you just on the spot when it's time play something.
I think I'm good at, I don't mean to brag, but I like to think I'm pretty good at both. Like if I'm put on the spot, I can come up with stuff, especially if I'm in a good place and I'm like really excited to do it. I'll come up with riffs, but I really take the time when I'm writing. I do have a ton of libraries. I have tons on my phone. Every time I hear a riff, I'm like, oh, boom, I'll either sing it, I play it. But because we have the studio there's nights, especially when I'm not so busy trying to get this tour ready with Sky. There's just nights where I just turn on my system, get my guitar going, throw up a drum beat, and I just start to play, and I just come up with riffs. And what I like doing is shaping a riff. Once I write it and I put a beat together and then a bass to it, and I go, Sky, what do you think? There's lots of times she'll be like, that's a cool riff, I like it. And once I know that she likes it and I know we're going to write something over it, I still don't think that's completely the riff half the time. I still go like, okay, cool, show me your melody. We start working that out. And it's funny like how it's like in like all the, once I'm in mix world, how many times I'll go back and redo guitar and bass and go, you know what, I can hear it doing this with the guitar, with the drum now. And I can hear now that Sky, her vocal was here, it left a gap here. Now I can do a lick right here. So I kind of think like that, like in these, where the pockets of great riffs should be.
It's a very producer way of writing, which is great.
And I also go out of my way to not write as complicated riffs as I want to. I really want to get complicated. I love prog rock. We went out on tour with this band Ginger not too long ago, and they were, man, just watching them play, I was like, man, it brought back all this prog rock, just like Dream Theater style shit. Like, where I was like, man, there's just so much going on, moving all over the place. But I can't do that completely. If you do that, it's for a players kind of a band. And Sky and I didn't completely try to write this as a players thing where I'm trying to impress guitar players. And you have to remind yourself that, like, I want a guy that's barely can play guitar to still be able to pick up a guitar. And if he works hard enough, work out my riff. And then sometimes I make really easy riffs where I'm like, man, this is just so simple. And it almost drives me nuts. But man, that's some of the best riffs in the world. They're so simple. And I have to always remind myself.
You think like AC/DC, like the simple but iconic
I absolutely
riffs.
Always bring up AC/DC. And even though no matter how metal and how hardcore and how dance hall-y or wherever I want to go, I love Spanish music. It's a lot in my playing. I like a lot of little like samba-y vibes. But I always think, how would AC/DC or a big rock band attack some of this so that it's not over the top? And we're already over the top to some people. Some people don't look, say to us, what, we don't even know where to market you, because you're moving from this, in your verse, you're doing a samba beat, Sky's kind of rapping. And then in the pre-chorus, you're doing like a hardcore part. And then you get to like your typical American rock chorus. And then you go to
there's a bridge, hip hop,
like reggae. Yeah. And then we hit the bridge and Sky's singing a dub part. And it's like, we just do, but I like to think we merge it really nice. But some people get like, whoa, this is crazy. But I lived for that, and I spend a lot of hours trying to make sure that it doesn't sound like too many other bands. And I don't think that's I don't want to say that we're unique, like nobody's never heard it, but I really go out of my way. I think a lot about it, where I'm like, that riff is too stock, I got to do more to it, or I've gone too far with that and I got to bring it back. And I do that a lot before we actually finalize the guitars.
Yeah, you guys are covering a ton of ground as far as genres, but you take it all and make it uniquely Sumo Cyco. Like, you have a unique sound, even though you can hear the influences throughout it, but somehow you can make it all work, which is, to me, it sounds like it's hard to do, but you guys have figured out how to make it work for you.
It's her. She's the puzzle piece, right? Like, if without the vocals, then you got these mismatches of things, but she's the one, when we sit down, like, she's the most important element, is getting Sky to find her place that makes all of this tie together and sound awesome, instead of like all random pieces.
I don't think people necessarily realize when we're writing songs, or like think of it. They always think, oh, you're just trying to write like the biggest song in the world all the time. But to me, because I had the background in such a pop upbringing where everything was about the song, the hit. And every single time I went into a writing session, everyone was just trying to write a hit all the time. And that there was no room sometimes for a bit of that like weirder experimental,
the album tracks,
kind of side. That's what I really, really wanted to do with Sumo Cyco. Is I wanted to discover parts of the way that we could write, or the way that I could sing, that I'd never discovered before. And when you're always trying to go for straight down the middle, like target on the bullseye, you don't learn these cool things about your voice or about your writing ability, because you're always just going for, the path of least resistance there.
And we've had plenty of people tell us, like, I think you would do better if you just did this, or if you just do this, but like, that's not what Sky and I are trying to accomplish. So
I think,
just like, sorry, that's not,
it's really is important to me. And I think I learned this really early, is like the artistic integrity of what you do. And that when you get lost too much in trying to hit that bullseye, I think you start thinking about what everyone else wants to hear from you, and what everyone else's opinions would be. And you want something that everybody's going to like, and you lose a bit of the fun and authenticity that you need to have, because people can see through that when you're just kind of like this, shell of yourself, instead of really, really, truly believing and loving what you do. And so I always make sure we have that grounding element, and we look at each other sometimes and analyze ourselves and go, we pushed a little too far, where we kind of tried
too poppy now, this is too heavy here. We get into that 5 choruses. Like, I've been like, Sky, this is still too poppy. Like, it's just so poppy that it's actually making me sick. And like, maybe that's
too sweet.
It's just too sweet. And she's so good at that. And then she's like, cool, she'll go back to the drawing board and show me something else and be like, man, now what do you think of this? And I'm like, that's it. It's that perfect spot that I feel like still has this, but has that. And then it's the same with riffs. I'll come up to her and be like, what do you think of this? And she'll be like, I don't even get it. And then she's like, I'm like, oh, okay, well then if you don't get it, half the people I want to get it won't get it. So I need to go back to the drawing board and come back and simplify this so that Sky does want to get it,
So in 2017, you release your second album. So this is Opus Mar, and the song Move Mountains is your most played song on Spotify, period, across all the albums. I'm curious why you think that song resonates with so many people. And then I love the song Rally, and I'm just curious, how much fun is it to play Rally live with like that blistering tempo?
Well, Mountains, I would think the reasons it's probably our highest is because we worked with Benji from Skindred on the song. So they definitely have a pretty solid following in a lot of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume because that song took off a lot earlier than some of our new ones, which are starting to climb pretty good. Yeah. But I would think that, and I think also like the idea of the song, like the chorus itself, is a very like, standard, strong, try to inspire you kind of a chorus.
Yeah. And it's also one of our favorites live, because I usually do this bit in that song where I get everyone to get down on the floor and then jump up in the middle of the bridge. And it really just like, I think anyone who sees us live we
just have a lot of
fun. To
relive
that memory, probably plays that specific song, because it kind of brings that same energy back.
And as for Rally, we've never played it live.
No,
we've
never
rehearsed it. I mean, but we never.
How dare you?
One song, it's one of those things where you start, no matter how much we didn't have hits, we've been lucky enough to get airplay in, especially in England. And when we tour there, especially, you know, you start playing the songs that get the airplay so that people recognize them. And you pick so many songs from the first record, and you pick so many from the second. And Rally, unfortunately, just never got onto our, you know, some songs just never get into the mix, and then you get so far in that you're like, I can't bring them in for a while. But it'd be like a great song to do if we can, like 2 years from now in England, just when we're like, oh, let's pick a couple randoms. That would be a great one. I'm sure people would be like,
okay, I'm gonna plant a seed, because on this North American tour, so I was in Toronto for 11 years, and during the pandemic, I moved back to my hometown of Ottawa. And you have an Ottawa date on, I believe, June 3rd or June 4th. Let's see, June 3rd at the Brass Monkey in Ottawa. So no pressure, but I'm just gonna plant a seed of maybe having that song in the set list. It doesn't, you know, no pressure. I'm just saying. But
good luck with that seed. But
I'll just keep playing it on Spotify.
Tour, but like, unfortunately, I can guarantee that one's I've already worked out everything right now, like about what we've got planned. So
I think people don't realize that when we put a set together, how much work goes into picking which songs we do and how to transition into one to another. It's not as easy as people think to just pick a different song and take requests off of like, even people will yell a song in our face while we're on stage, like, we want this song, and
but we're like, we haven't rehearsed
it. It doesn't flow with our set.
And like,
plan,
there's other bands that are different like that, like bands like Clutch. There's a lot of rock bands out there that I'm sure, like, through their discography, they're the kind of guys that all jam together and just like, you could just throw out song titles. They're just, I know I'm a big fan of that band. Their set list changes every night. They all write one. I think each band member writes one every night, and they just go ahead because they're so comfortable.
That's so cool.
But we didn't grow like that. We grow where I'm like, really, I'm a big fan of antics. I love Sky. I'm a big fan of the show. Sky likes to interact. There's a lot of things we have to think about that we do more of, that really, you start working out in a set where we're like, oh, this song, we're going to go this, but we're only going to do half of this song. And then we're going to go into half of this song. And then we're going to stop, and Sky's going to, you know, do whatever she wants. I don't even know what she's going to do, but we're going to follow her lead, and we're all going to play really quietly while she does. And, you know, I start working out all that right down to the minute, because when we're in an opening slot, you get 30 minutes. And if you go 1 minute over, you're literally, the tour manager is going to rip your head off. And when you're in a headline set, you still get a lot of time, but it's almost too much time. If you don't work it out, then you look kind of dumb. You're just playing song to song without really having something worked out. So I work out almost everything. Everything is very, very well structured. We do change things on the fly where I'm like, that song's not working, guys, live. We got to change to this. We know this. But I don't.
There's been very few times, I remember them specifically, when we've been like called on for an encore, and we're like, okay, guys, we haven't rehearsed this, but let's just try it. The people are demanding it right now. And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it does not go so well.
I just make sure I always leave 2 songs for encores now, no matter what, instead of just being like, wow, we just have, because there's times where we're just like, we don't want to do even an encore. We're not even in the kind of, you know, place that we usually get to ask to do encore, unless we're in England, that we might, but like in America, it's usually not. But I always like to leave a couple just in case. Now I don't like to get running into that. I don't know what to do.
So we have a couple world-class musicians that have sent in some kind words for you guys. So brace yourself for this. So the most popular episode of this podcast ever, we had a special guest. We had Rick Jacket from Finger 11 on episode number 34. And Rick says, I will say this, they work their asses off. So that keeps coming. It seems like that everybody knows that you're the hardest working band in Canada. So that's from Rick Jacket, which is awesome. And then Sky, you mentioned that sometimes songs get requested that you weren't maybe gonna play and you try it anyways. Well, we have a world-class songwriter, Mr. Blair Packham, that sent in this, and this kind of touches on that. He says, I shared the stage once with Sky. I loved seeing her try her really heavy Sumo Cyco songs out acoustically. The audience went crazy. The songs sounded so good stripped down like that. People talked about that Songbird North show for a long while after that. So 2 comments sent in for you guys.
Blair's a lovely man. Blair was a very nice guy.
Blair is awesome.
Fun show we did with Blair.
Thanks for all these nice people writing to us.
It's nice to hear some kind words.
Like Rick's is like, I'll say this. That means that Rick's one of those guys that's like, I'm not sure about the music, but they work hard. And he respects us for it. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well,
I'll say this.
We're all friends with hundreds or thousands of musicians on Facebook. We know them by name. We know some of them we've met or played with. We don't know everybody that well. So some of the responses you can tell that they know you as people, and some of them they just know of you. So
we've opened for Rick a couple times. We've opened for them in way up north somewhere in a mod club. So we know them. They've seen us play. They've seen us try to hustle.